Arcane Lineage has a ton of powerful superclasses, but which ones truly stand above the rest? Whether you're looking for the strongest PvE grinder, the deadliest PvP duelist, or the best all-around class, we've got you covered. Today, we're breaking down every superclass in Arcane Lineage, ranking them from the absolute best to the ones you might want to avoid. Stick around to find out which class dominates the battlefield. But before we dive in, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It helps us out a ton and keeps you updated with the best Arcane Lineage content. Plus, if we hit insert goal, e.g., 500 likes, we'll drop a full in-depth guide on the top superclass in the game. Alright, let's get into it, starting with the top-tier superclasses. C-tier. Brawler, neutral. Brawler sits at the bottom of the tier list as the weakest superclass in Arcane Lineage. While it focuses on pure melee combat, it lacks the key traits needed to compete with other classes. Its biggest issue is its complete reliance on close-range attacks, making it struggle against opponents who can keep their distance. Without any mobility skills or gap closers, Brawler is often forced to chase enemies while taking damage, making it highly vulnerable in both PvE and PvP. On top of that, Brawler lacks any real defensive tools. Unlike Paladin or Saint, which have healing and sustain, or Berserker, which has sheer aggression and tankiness, Brawler doesn't offer much in terms of survivability. This makes it difficult to stay alive in prolonged fights, especially when facing multiple enemies. Even in terms of damage, Brawler doesn't stand out. While it can land some strong melee hits, it lacks the overwhelming power of other offensive classes like Berserker or Impaler. It also doesn't have the speed or evasiveness of Blade Dancer or Assassin, leaving it stuck in a tough spot where it can't deal enough damage to justify its weaknesses. Overall, Brawler is a fun but impractical class. If you enjoy a straightforward, hand-to-hand combat style, you might still find it enjoyable, but compared to other superclasses, it falls short in almost every way. B tier. Ranger, orderly. Ranger is a decent superclass, but it doesn't quite reach the top tiers due to its lack of versatility. It specializes in ranged combat, which allows it to keep opponents at a distance, making it a solid pick for kiting enemies. However, its overall damage output is not as high as other ranged or hybrid classes, and it struggles in close-quarters combat. Without strong mobility or defensive abilities, Ranger can be easily overwhelmed when opponents get too close. While it performs well in certain PvE scenarios, it lacks the raw power and adaptability needed to stand out among the best superclasses. Assassin, chaotic. Assassin is a fast and deadly superclass, excelling in burst damage and mobility. Its speed allows it to strike quickly and evade attacks, making it a strong pick for PvP engagements. However, its main weakness is its reliance on getting the jump on opponents. If an assassin fails to secure an early advantage, it can struggle due to its relatively low defense. Additionally, in PvE, it isn't as effective for sustained fights compared to other damage-dealing classes. While still a strong option, Assassin falls into B tier because it requires a high skill level to maximize its potential and lacks the consistency of higher-tier classes. Hexer, neutral. Hexer is an interesting class that focuses on debuffs and status effects to weaken enemies rather than dealing direct damage. While this makes it a valuable support option in team fights, its overall damage output is underwhelming compared to other offensive superclasses. In PvE, Hexer can be useful for controlling enemies, but in PvP, it struggles against classes that can quickly burst it down before its debuffs take full effect. The class has potential, but its slower playstyle and reliance on weakening enemies rather than outright overpowering them keep it in B tier. A tier. Blade Dancer, neutral. Blade Dancer is a fast-paced melee superclass that excels in mobility and combo-based attacks. It can weave in and out of fights, dealing consistent damage while avoiding retaliation. This makes it highly effective in both PvE and PvP, as it can pressure enemies without taking too much damage itself. However, it lacks the sheer durability of tankier classes, meaning players need good positioning and reflexes to maximize its potential. Elementalist, Orderly. Elementalist is one of the best ranged classes in Arcane Lineage, boasting powerful elemental attacks that can deal massive damage from a safe distance. It excels at controlling fights, using different elemental abilities to adapt to various situations. While it is highly effective in PvE, its main weakness is its lack of mobility and defense. If enemies close the gap, Elementalist can be taken down quickly. Despite this, its raw power and versatility place it firmly in A tier. Paladin, Orderly. Paladin is a well-rounded superclass that combines offense, defense, and healing, making it one of the most durable picks in the game. It can sustain itself in fights, making it highly effective in both solo and team-based combat. While its damage isn't the highest, its survivability makes up for it, allowing Paladin to outlast many other classes in prolonged battles. This balance of power, defense, and utility secures its spot in A tier. Lancer, Neutral. Lancer is a versatile melee class with strong reach, allowing it to deal damage while keeping enemies at bay. It strikes a good balance between offense and mobility, making it a solid choice for both PvE and PvP. However, it lacks the extreme burst damage of top-tier offensive classes, and it doesn't have the sustain of tankier options. Despite these minor drawbacks, Lancer remains one of the stronger melee superclasses, deserving of its place in A tier. Rogue, Neutral. Rogue is a fast and evasive superclass, excelling in quick strikes and dodging attacks. Its agility makes it hard to hit, giving it an advantage in both PvE and PvP fights. However, it doesn't have the highest damage output, and if caught, it can go down quickly due to its low defense. While it requires a skilled player to fully utilize its strengths, Rogue's speed and adaptability make it a strong A tier pick. Dark Wraith, Chaotic. Dark Wraith is a fearsome superclass that specializes in aggressive, high-damage attacks. It thrives in close combat, overwhelming opponents with powerful strikes. Unlike other melee classes, Dark Wraith has abilities that make it harder to kill, giving it strong survivability in fights. However, it requires an aggressive playstyle, as it lacks the defensive tools of a paladin or the speed of an assassin. In the right hands, Dark Wraith is one of the best offensive superclasses, earning its place in A tier. Before we get into the absolute best superclasses in Arcane Lineage, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us out and keeps us motivated to bring you more tier lists, guides, and updates. Plus, if you subscribe now, you'll always stay ahead of the competition with the latest strategies and rankings. Now, let's get into the S tier classes, the strongest picks in the game. S tier. Monk, Orderly. Monk is one of the strongest superclasses in Arcane Lineage, combining high mobility, strong melee attacks, and self-sustain. It has a perfect balance of offense and defense, allowing it to deal consistent damage while also surviving longer in fights. Unlike Brawler, Monk has the tools to close gaps quickly, making it a nightmare for ranged opponents. Its combination of speed, power, and survivability makes it an S tier pick for both PvE and PvP. Impaler, Chaotic. Impaler is a deadly superclass that specializes in high burst damage, excelling in aggressive, close-range combat. It has some of the highest damage output in the game, capable of quickly eliminating opponents before they even have a chance to react. While it doesn't have the best defensive capabilities, its sheer offensive power more than makes up for it. This class dominates in PvP and remains one of the best choices for dealing massive damage in PvE, securing its place in S tier. Berserker, Chaotic. Berserker is a powerhouse of raw strength and resilience. It thrives in chaotic battles, dealing massive damage while also having the durability to survive prolonged fights. Unlike other melee classes, Berserker becomes stronger as it takes damage, making it extremely difficult to bring down. This class is perfect for players who prefer an aggressive, relentless playstyle. Thanks to its insane damage potential and survivability, Berserker easily belongs in S tier. Necromancer, Chaotic. Necromancer stands out as one of the most unique and powerful superclasses in Arcane Lineage. Instead of relying solely on direct attacks, it summons undead minions to fight alongside it, making it highly effective in both solo and group fights. Its ability to control the battlefield with summons and dark magic makes it incredibly strong, especially in PvE. While it may have lower mobility, its overwhelming numbers and sustained damage allow it to dominate fights, placing it firmly in S tier. Saint, Orderly. Saint is the ultimate support superclass, providing unmatched healing, buffs, and defensive abilities. While it may not be the best at dealing damage, its ability to keep itself and allies alive makes it one of the most valuable picks in the game. In team fights, Saint can turn the tide of battle by keeping teammates in the fight for longer, making it essential in high-level PvE and PvP. Its combination of utility, sustain, and defensive power makes it an easy choice for S tier.